Chapter 11, Part 1. Hey, Morgan, the voice was shouting, even as the door went slamming and crashing open, sticking every few inches because it was old and warped and didn't fit the frame anymore. Jazz had jerked away at the first noise. The connection between her and Morgan was disrupted, although she could feel faint echoes of the silver thread, like a guitar string vibrating after it was strung. Hey, Morgan. Hey, you still asleep? Several laughing, ruckus people were crowding into the room, but the yelling stopped abruptly as they caught sight of Jazz. There was a gasp, and then silence. Jazz stood up to face them. She couldn't afford to feel tired anymore. Every muscle was lightly tense, every sense alert. She knew the danger she was in. Just like Morgan, they were the float Sam and Jet Sam of the San Francisco streets. The orphans, the ones who lived with indifferent relatives, the ones nobody in the night world really wanted, the forgotten ones. Her gang. They were out of school and ready to rumble. Jazz had always thought, from the day she and Morgan began picking these kids up, that the night world was making a mistake and treating them like garbage. They might be young, they might not have families, but they had power. Every one of them had the strength to be a formidable opponent. And right now, they were looking at her like a group of wolves looking at dinner. If they all decided to go for her at once, she would be in trouble. Somebody would end up getting killed. She faced them squarely, outwardly calm, as a quiet voice finally broke the silence. It's really you, Jazz. And then another voice from beside Jazz. Yeah, she came back, Morgan said carelessly. She joined the gang again. Jazz shot him the briefest of sideways glances. She hadn't expected him to help. He returned the look with an unreadable expression. She came back, somebody said blankly. Jazz felt a twinge of amused sympathy. That's right, she said, keeping her face grave. I had to go away for a while, and I can't tell you where, but now I'm back. I just fought my way back in, and I beat Morgan for the leadership. She figured she might as well get it all over with at once. She had no idea how they were going to react to the idea of her as leader. There was another long moment of silence, and then a whoop, a sound that resembled a war cry. At the same instant, there was a violent rush toward Jazz, four people all throwing themselves at her. For a heartbeat, she stood frozen, ready to fend off a fourfold attack. Then arms wrapped around her waist. Jazz, I missed you. Someone slapped her on the back, almost hard enough to knock her down. You bad girl, you beat him again? People were trying to hug her and punch her and pet her all at once. Jazz had to struggle not to show she was overwhelmed. She hadn't expected this of them. It's good to see you guys again, she said. Her voice was very slightly unsteady, and it was the truth. Raven Mandrell said, You scared us when you disappeared, you know. Raven was the tall, willowy one with the marbled, pale skin. Her black hair was short in back and long in front, falling over one eye and obscuring it. The other eye, midnight blue, gleamed at Jazz. Jazz allowed herself to gleam back, just a bit. She had always liked Raven, who was the most mature of the group. Sorry, girl. I wasn't scared. That was Thistle, still hugging Jazz's waist. Thistle Galena was the delicate one, who had stopped her aging when she reached 10. She was as old as the others, but tiny and almost weightless. She had feathery blonde hair, amethyst eyes, and little glistening white teeth. Her specialty was playing the lost child and then attacking any humans who tried to help her. You're never scared, Jazz told her, squeezing back. She means she knew you were all right, wherever you were. I did too, Pierce Holt said. Pierce was the slender, cold boy, the one with the aristocratic face and the artist's hands. He had dark blonde hair and deep set eyes, and he seemed to carry his own windshield factor with him. But just now he was looking at Jazz with cool approval. I'm glad somebody thought so, Jazz said, with a glance at Morgan, who just looked condescending. Yeah, well, some people were going crazy. They thought you were dead. Valerian Stillman put in, following Jazz's look. Val was the big, heroic one, with deep russet hair, gray black eyes, and the build of a linebacker. He was usually either laughing or yelling with impatience. Morgan had us scoring the streets for you from Daly City to the Golden Gate Bridge because I was hoping a few of you would fall off, Morgan said without emotion. But I had no such luck. Now shut up, Belle. We don't have time for all this class reunion stuff. We've got something important to do. Thistle face lit up as she stepped back from Jazz. You mean a hunt? He means the wild power, Raven said. Her one visible eye was fixed on Jazz. He's told you already, hasn't he? I didn't need to tell her, Morgan said. She already knew. She came back because Hunter Redfern wants to make a deal with us. The wild power for a place with him after the millennium. He got a reaction, the one Jazz knew he expected. Thistle squeaked with pleasure. Raven laughed huskily. Pierce gave one of his cold smiles, and Vale roared. He knows we've got the real thing. He doesn't want to mess with us, he shouted. That's right, Vale. I'm sure he's quaking in his boots, Morgan said. He glanced at Jazz and rolled his eyes. Jazz couldn't help but grin. This really was like old times. She and Morgan trading secret looks about Val. There was a strange warmth sweeping through her. Not the scary tingling heat she'd experienced with Morgan alone, but something simpler. A feeling of being with people who liked her and knew her. A feeling of belonging. She never felt that at her human school. She'd seen things that would drive her human classmates insane even to imagine. None of them had any idea of what the real world was like, or what Jazz was like, for that matter. But now she was surrounded by people who understood her, and it felt so good that it was alarming. She hadn't expected this, that she would slip back into the gang like a hand in a glove, or that something inside her would look around and sigh and say, we're home. Because I am not home, she told herself sternly. These are not my people. They don't really know me either. But they don't have to, the little sigh returned. You don't ever need to tell them you're human. There's no reason for them to find out. Jazz shoved the thought away, scrunched down hard on the sighing part of her mind, and hoped it would stay scrunched. She tried to focus on what the others were saying. Thistle was talking to Morgan, showing all her small teeth as she smiled. So if you've got the terms settled, does that mean we get to do it now? We get to pick the little girl up? Today? Yeah, I guess we could. Morgan looked at Jazz. We know her name and everything. It's Iona Skelton, and she's living just a couple of buildings down from where the fire was. Thistle made friends with her earlier this week. Jazz was startled. Although she kept her expression relaxed, she hadn't expected things to move this fast, but it might all work out for the best. She realized, her mind turning over possibilities quickly. If she could snatch the kid and take her back to Hugh, this whole masquerade could be over by tomorrow. She might even live through it. Don't get too excited, she warned Thistle, combing some bits of grass out of the smaller girl's silk floss hair. Hunter wants the wild power alive and unharmed. He's got plans for her. Plus, before we take her, we've got to test her, Morgan said. Jazz controlled an urge to swallow, went on combing Thistle's hair with her fingers. What do you mean, test her? I think that would be obvious. We can't take the chance of sending Hunter a dud. We have to make sure she is the wild power. Jess raised an eyebrow. I thought you were sure, she said. But of course she knew Morgan was right. She herself would have insisted Hugh find a way to test the little girl before doing anything else with her. The problem was that Morgan's testing was likely to be unpleasant. I'm sure, but I still want to test her, Morgan snapped. Do you have a problem with that? Only if it's dangerous. For us, I mean. After all, she's got some kind of power beyond imagining, right? And she's in elementary school. I hardly think she's going to be able to take on six vampires. The others were looking back and forth between Morgan and Jazz like fans at a tennis match. It's just as if she never left, Raven said dryly, and Belle bellowed laughter while Thistle giggled. They always sound so merry, Pierce observed with just a ting of spite to his cold voice. Jazz glared at them, aware that Morgan was doing the same. I wouldn't marry him if every other guy on earth was dead, she informed Pierce. If it were a choice between her and a human, I'd pick the human, Morgan put in nastily. Everyone laughed at that, even Jazz. The sun glittered on the water at the marina. On Jazz's left was a wide strip of green grass, where people were flying huge and colorful kites, complicated ones with dozens of rainbow tails. On the sidewalk, people were rollerblading and jogging and walking dogs. Everybody was wearing summer clothing. Everybody was happy. It was different on the other side of the street. Everything changed over there. A line of pinky brown concrete stood like a wall to mark the difference. There was a high school and then rows of a housing project, all the buildings identically square, flat, and ugly. And on the next street beyond them, there was nobody walking at all. Jazz let Morgan take the lead on his motorcycle as he headed for those buildings. She always found this place depressing. He pulled into a narrow alley beside a store with a dilapidated sign proclaiming shellfish delish. Bell roared in after him. Then Jazz, then Raven with Thistle riding pillion behind her, and finally Pierce. They all turned off their motors. That's where she lives now, across the street, Morgan said. She and her mom are staying with her aunt. Nobody plays in the background, it's too dangerous, but Thistle might be able to get her to come down the stairs. Of course I can, Thistle said calmly. She showed her pointed teeth in a grin. Then we can grab her and be gone before her mom even notices, Morgan said. We can take her back to my place and do the test where it's private. Jazz breathed once to calm the knot in her stomach. I'll grab her, she said. At least that way she might be able to whisper something comforting to the kid. Thistle, you try to get her right out to the sidewalk. Everybody else, stay behind me. If she sees a bunch of motorcycles, she'll probably freak. But be ready to gun it when I pull out and grab her. The noise should help cover up any screams. Raven, you pick up Thistle as soon as I get the kid, and we all go straight back to Morgan. Everyone was nodding, looking pleased with the plan, except Morgan. The end of chapter 1, part 1. Chapter 11, part 2 will continue.